What's good, YouTube? This is Boxingwave, and we are back with another fight breakdown. One that I'm really excited about. Tim Tszyu is going to be facing Tony Harrison for the WBO interim title at 154. Okay, this is going to be this Saturday, March 11th on Showtime, 10:45 p.m. Eastern. Okay, and this fight is going to be out in Australia. So Tony Harrison's already flew out there. He's already done interviews out there. He's been out there, so he should be well adjusted to the time difference. All right. I love this fight, and if you've been here on the channel for years, I've been here making videos. This will be my 10th year making content on YouTube. And then if you've been around, you know that 154 has always been one of my favorite divisions. I don't know why. It's just been so much talent at the division. And there was a lot of fights that didn't take place, but it was always a good amount of fights that consistently happened at this division. You know, Canelo's have been here, Jared Hurd, from Tony Harrison to J. Rock Williams to Jason Rosario, the Charlo twins, Demetrius Andre. It's just so many names that's been in this division, and a lot of them did fight each other, and a lot of fights didn't happen. James Kirkland, it's so many different people. And I've always loved this division because even though all of them didn't fight each other, we did get a lot of good fights over the years. You had fighters dipping into 154 from 147, you know, and a lot of these guys end up moving up to 160, 168, like Canelo Alvarez, Demetrius Andre, Jamal Charlo, you know. So we've always, how can I forget Landy Lara, he's probably been my favorite out of all the guys at 154, minus Martin Rojan. You know, so Tony Harrison has been around, maybe not as early as some of those other guys I just named, but he's been around for a minute. And Tim Tszyu is one of the younger, fresher guys. You know, I mean, he's been a prospect for a while. I mean, we've been seeing him for a while. So now this is going to be his biggest test to date. You know, and Tony Harrison, this might be, depending on whether he wins or loses this fight, this might be his last title opportunity. Now, the reason why we're here is because Jermell Charlo suffered an injury and he pulled out of the fight. He was supposed to defend his 4 titles against Tim Tszyu in a mandatory fight for the WBO. But Jermell Charlo pulled out of the fight, right? And Tim Tszyu didn't want to wait, you know. He didn't want to wait for the reschedule because it's been a year since he's already been in the ring, you know. Let me pull up his thing. Tim Tszyu hasn't been in the ring in a year now. He fought last March against Terrell Gausha, and he didn't want to go on and wait for the reschedule. You know what I'm saying? Jermell Charlo, I believe Jermell Charlo probably fought after him when he beat Castano in the rematch. All right, so he didn't want to wait, and he chose to take a very dangerous fight for him because Tony, you know, you look at his losses and everything, Tony is still the best fighter by far that Tim Tszyu has faced in his career. He has never fought anyone quite like Tony. You know, so even though Tim is a slight favorite to win this fight, he's better. He's fighting against a very technical boxer, you know, a defensive boxer, and Tony Harrison. Very experienced, and he's not old and washed up. He's 32 years old. You know what I'm saying? And he hasn't really showed signs that he's past his prime. You know, he's had his ups and downs, obviously, but he hasn't showed like a consistent deterioration, you know, as far as his skills and as far as his ability, you know. He still looks very good. He won his last fight, a solid fight against Sergio Garcia, and now he's going into this fight. So let's talk about the fighters. Tim Tszyu, 28 years old, 21 wins, 15 KOs, no losses, no draws, or anything like that. Hasn't fought the best in the division yet, but he's fought some solid opponents. He beat Jeff Horn. He's beaten, who did he beat? He beat Terrell Gausha in his last fight. Who else did he fight? I don't want to forget. Takeshi Inoue, solid win, solid opponent. He beat Steve Spark, who's now fighting down at 140. He fought Dennis Hogan. Some of the film study I did was with Dennis Hogan. I saw some of the Inoue fight. But I think the go-to fight really for this film study for me was the Terrell Gausha fight because I think he's the most similar to Tony. Not as good as Tony in my opinion. But Terrell Gausha was probably the best he's ever been when he stepped in the ring with Tim Tszyu, even though he lost the fight. Much more improved fighter than he was back when he fought Lara. You know, he was letting his hands go a lot more. He was able to drop Tim Tszyu in that fight. So Tim Tszyu is, you know, he's solid, but he's an explosive power puncher. And let's talk about more about that. Like I said, he's 28 years old. He's an orthodox fighter. He has the reach disadvantage. He's not as long and not as tall as Tony. All right, Tony's 6'1". I think Tszyu is like around 5'10", 5'11". Let me just check. Oh, no, I'm sorry, 5'8". All right, he's 5'8", and he has a 72-inch reach. And, you know, when they're face off, you can see the clear difference in height between the two. All right, so Tim Tszyu's style, he's a pressure fighter, but he is not a high-volume puncher. You know, everybody thinks pressure, pressure, pressure. They're thinking a lot of punches like we just saw this past weekend with Brandon Figueroa. Tim Tszyu is not type of guy. Doesn't throw a lot of punches. What he does is he likes to stalk you. He just wants to be in rage. He fights in a high guard, and he likes to inch closer and closer to you, push you back until you get your back against the ropes, all right? But he likes to guard up, walk you down, all right? And counter and slip and counter with certain shots. But most of the time, he's flat-footed. He's coming straight forward. He's coming straight forward in a straight line. And sometimes he could be a little too square. You know, sometimes his feet could be planted side by side while he's throwing certain punches. And that's how he got caught in the Terrell Gausha fight in the first round. He got dropped in the first round by Gausha because in the middle of throwing punches, you know, Terrell caught him with a shot right down the center. And the thing with Tim Tszyu, he's usually throwing wider punches, you know. He does go to the body, though. He's very explosive, and he's very powerful. He's very heavy-handed in both hands. All right, so that's the thing. He doesn't like to waste punches as far as his volume. All right, he's more like, you know, I'm going to hit you with a two-piece, but they're both going to be very heavy. I want to hurt you. I want to stop you. That's his game plan. He's not really trying to win rounds off activity. He's not throwing a bunch of jabs. All he's doing is getting in range because he's very strong and powerful, and he's tough. He's durable. He's been knocked down a couple of times in the first round, but sometimes fighters are like that. You know, some fighters just need to wake up. Joe Kazagi got dropped by Roy Jones in the first round. Even Bernard Hopkins, I think, dropped in the first round. Certain fighters just need to wake up, and I feel like Tim Tszyu is one of those guys where, being that he's so aggressive and he comes straight in, sometimes he got to get reminded, like, yo, you want to fight. You just can't just walk everybody down. Yes, he's tough, he's durable, but he can get caught with a good shot. But he has good recovery, and he's, for the most part, a very durable fighter. So he's going to be facing against Tony, coming in that high guard. And the thing is, you know, like I said, sometimes he's a little too square. Sometimes his hands is not up. Sometimes, yes, he has his high guard up, but his you can still catch him in the center. You know, most of his high guard's not tight. It's like it's open, and you can catch him with straight shots. Tony Harrison, who has a great 1-2, you know, a great jab, and a great right hand, or great, you know, cross or whatever. He definitely got the tools to catch Tim with some good shots. But Tim is a very good counter puncher. He likes to come forward, but he'll slip and counter you and hit you with 2 or 3 punches. It's very explosive. It's looking to ambush you. You know what I'm saying? But his game is very simple. He's not the best defensive fighter, okay? He's not good at moving. Like, he doesn't have the quick feet. You know, he's not great at lateral movement, or he's not much of a jabber, like I said. He's not probing. He's not feinting that much. He's not changing levels and getting low, bending at the waist. And, you know, he's not like, I watched some of the Jarrett Hurd fight with Tony Harrison. Jarrett Hurd was a totally different type of pressure fighter. He's powerful, but it's mainly because of his size. I don't think he has the punching power of Tim Tszyu. Jarrett Hurd is more of a guy that's going to wear you down, but he's a high volume puncher. So when Jarrett Hurd, and this is when Jarrett Hurd was in his prime, not the Jarrett Hurd that just lost the other night. This is a Jarrett Hurd that's coming forward, throwing a lot of punches, right? Taking some, but he's throwing a lot, and he's wearing you down, and he's hitting you all over the place. And but as he's coming in, he's throwing jabs. He's moving his body a lot. He's moving the head a lot. Plus, he got that Philly shell defense. He's rolling punches and stuff. He's getting in. He's countering you with short shots. Tim Tszyu is not like that. Tim Tszyu is like the guy that tried to counter you by going to your body or slipping and hitting you with hooks and wider shots. You know what I'm saying? So you can catch Tim. He's not the fastest guy, but you could catch him by throwing the short shots down the middle and you know, like what Tony likes to do. All right, so Tim Tszyu is just going to be looking to walk down Tony. Tony Harrison, let's talk about him. 29 wins, 21 knockouts, 3 losses. He's 32 years old, orthodox fighter. Obviously, I said he's taller, 6'1", 76.5-inch reach, you know, and very, very experienced. I've been watching Tony for a long time. I remember when he was a prospect coming up, knocking a lot of guys out until he ran into Willie Nelson. I remember watching that fight live. You know, he lost that fight, a fight that he was winning, but younger and hungry. It reminds me of a younger Vladimir Klitschko when he used to get burned out and get stopped. Tony Harrison didn't really knew how to pace himself at the time, even though that was a 10-rounder. You could see in that fight that maybe around the 7th round, he started to burn out against the more experienced Willie Nelson. Yes, he had the skills, he had the hand speed, but Willie Nelson was more of a dog, and he was seasoned at that time, and he was able to stop Tony Harrison then. You know, but Tony, you know, kept fighting on. Ran into Jarrett Hurd in another fight where he was winning. He was outboxing Hurd, but Hurd's pressure was just too much. Hurd was just too big, too powerful, too relentless. And Tony, once he started getting his back to the ropes, the thing is, Tony's a good fighter, good defensive fighter. The problem is, once he slows down, the defense, it shut down. He's easier to hit. Kind of reminds me of Caleb Plant, you know, and I can't wait to do that breakdown. But Caleb Plant is the exact same thing. Caleb Plant on the defense is good. He's hard to hit, but once he starts to slow down, he becomes a lot more hittable. And I feel like Tony Harrison, one of his biggest flaws when I watch his fights, you know, between those and the Jamel Charlo fights, Hurd, Willie Nelson. When Tony Harrison, and those 3 losses that he have, all 3 losses were by knockout. All right, all 3 losses. He has 1 draw in there against Brian Perella, which was his first comeback fight. I believe this is his first fight after his father passed away. This is the first fight after the loss to Jamel Charlo, and most importantly, it was against the southpaw. And Tony, clearly to me, when I watched a little bit of that fight, even though it really is irrelevant to this fight because Tim Tszyu is not a southpaw, but you can see that Tony struggles a little bit more against southpaws. I don't see that same kind of slickness that he has in most of his fights, even when he loses, right? But when I go back to these other fights, and I want to say one of his biggest flaws, even as a seasoned fighter, losing to Willie Nelson early, but going on to lose to Jamel Charlo in the rematch. When Tony is hurt, he likes to signal that he is hurt. And what I mean by that is when you catch him with a good shot, he wants to taunt you. He doesn't act like the seasoned vet that he is and tie up or don't make it look like there's some guys that are fighters. There's some fighters that are good at masking when they're hurt. Tony is not one of those guys, and I think that's one of the biggest issues in his style. You get hurt, don't wave your opponent to come in and keep coming forward, because these guys like Jamel Charlo or Willie Nelson or Jarrett Hurd, you know, like I saw it in the Jarrett Hurd fight. I saw it in the Charlo fight. You get caught with a good shot, be responsible, you know, at least give yourself some time to recover. Tie up if you have to. Do anything that you have to survive. It reminds me of J-Rock once he got hurt with Jamel Charlo. You know, he got caught with a good shot early and he got up too quick. You know, he didn't give his time. Some fighters that know how to react to getting hurt, they'll stay down one knee a little longer, give their body some time to recover. Give yourself J-Rock just got up too quick, you know, and he was still looking into the crowd. You know, fighters, they're really prideful, you know, so they feel a little embarrassed when they get caught. But we all see what's going on. We all can see from outside of the ring that you're clearly hurt. You don't need to show off to the crowd. You don't need to look into the crowd. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I got it. I'm good. No, you're not good. We can see you're not good. Clearly, you're not good. So if he does get caught with a good shot, he is fighting against a puncher here. You get caught with a good shot, you tie up. You do whatever you have to do to give yourself time to recover. You know, you don't sit here and act like, yeah, I'm tough. No, don't try to out tough. He said that in the interview I just saw. You know, he's like, I know Tim is tough. I'm not trying to out tough you. I'm trying to get hit less. Well, if you do get hit with a good shot, tie up, survive. You know, I was just watching Mark Messiah. I rewatched it this morning on Showtime. Mark Messiah, all he's doing, he's overholding, but all he did was hold. He survived the fight because he knew how to survive. And he held as much as he could. Yeah, he got points deducted, but he held as much as he could to go to the end of the fight, to survive the fight. Tony needs to do that because he's fighting a puncher. You know, so in this fight here, what does he need to do? He needs to control the distance, which is great. This is one of his tools. His tools, you know, I didn't even go through that. Quick hands, solid power, not a puncher like Tim Tszyu, not a KO artist. You know, at the highest level, he has not stopped none of the best fighters he's fought. But, you know, he has the power. He has 21 KOs. All right? He has 21 KOs. He can pop. He hurt Jermell Charlo. You know, he hurt him with a couple shots. He buzzed him. He buzzed Jarrett Hurd in a couple shots. You know, I rewatched all of these fights because they were so good fights. Yes, I'm doing film study, but then I got caught into, you know, the action of the fight because I remember these fights and I remember watching them live. I went to Jermell Charlo and Tony Harrison fight live in Brooklyn, the first one. All right. So with that being said, Tony Harrison, very slick fighter, good defensive fighter, good Philly shell defense, you know, good counter puncher, good hand speed. Like I said, moves beautifully laterally, you know, knows how to control distance. Like I said, uses a great jab, great 1-2, you know, great right hand, good hooks, can fight on the inside. You know, I love the approach he took, and, you know, and I know he took an L against Jermell in a rematch, but I like the approach he did by coming forward. And we're going to talk about that here because the thing with Tony, you're fighting a less experienced fighter and you're fighting someone that hasn't fought at your level. So be surprising. We already know he's a pressure fighter. Force him to fight going backwards like you did with Jermell. You force him to fight there. Yes, he has power. Yes, it's risky. But do you want to fight on your back foot until you get burnt out and then now you're on the ropes because you're moving less, because you're tired? When the 8th, 9th round comes, like it did in the Jermell Charlo loss in a rematch, 11th round you lost. You know, same thing with Jarrett Hurd. Let's go. Let's pull up his resume. He lost to Jarrett Hurd in the 9th round. I want to say around the 6th, 7th round, he started to burn out a little bit. Jarrett Hurd throws a lot of punches. Same thing with Willie Nelson. 9th round TKO out of a 10-round fight. You know, on Jermell Charlo in the rematch, 11th round in the 12th rounder fight. You know, and even in the first fight, he got hurt late in that fight. I didn't go back and watch that one. But I believe it was either the last round or the round before the last round. I don't want to get confused because I know Jamal fought that same night and almost lost. But I know he was able to hurt, what's his name? Who did he fight? Mark. Who did Jamal fight that night? I can't remember. Let me pull it up. Oh, Matt Korobov. All right. So I don't want to confuse because I didn't go back and watch that fight. I just did film study on a rematch. You know, but I thought that Tony was winning the rematch most of the rounds, even though he got dropped early. And I feel like going into this fight, he needs to take that approach or change it up at some. Don't always come forward. Find time to fight on your back foot, set traps, look for good counters, look for opportunities to catch Tim Tszyu as he's coming in. You know, he comes straight forward. He's always going to be there to hit. You know, he doesn't have the best defense. So use that jab. Land those right hands through the guard of Tim Tszyu. You know, Tim Tszyu, on the other hand, he has to do what he has to do. All right? Apply the pressure. You're going to be fighting Tony in the early rounds. Don't give him your 100% in the early rounds. Wait for him to burn out. We have seen that after the 6th round, halfway through the fight, that Tony consistently has burnt out in other fights. So Tim Tszyu, the approach he needs to take here is to let a few rounds go. All right, walk him down, but stay guarded up. You know, walk him down, apply that pressure, let him burn himself out from movement. You know, mentally drain him, try to come forward. If he tries to apply pressure and come forward to you, then maybe if you do have a good back foot game, because I haven't really seen it. And to be honest, Tim Tszyu has not really showed me what he's really fully capable of, because in every fight he's been in, he's always been in full control of the fight. Jeff Horn, yeah, Jeff Horn, you might look at his name and say that that might be the best guy on his resume, but that wasn't the best, most competitive fight for Tim Tszyu. Terrell Gorshey was definitely the most competitive fight at the highest level in his career, because Tim Tszyu was able, Terrell Gorshey was able to drop him, and he was able to land a lot of punches and fight back. Jeff Horn, there was a lot of wrestling involved in that fight. Not no clean punches from Jeff Horn. You know, Jeff Horn is very rough and rugged, very dirty in some ways. So I don't think that was the best test. And I felt like Dennis Hogan, who's a good boxer, just didn't have anything to give him. You know, he's just a good boxer, but he's that powerful puncher. You know, so Dennis Hogan really didn't have much to give. Steve Spark, too small, didn't really have much to provide. He got out of there quick. Takeshi Inoue, tough fighter, went the distance, but from a boxing ability standpoint, he doesn't have anything that Tony has. You know, and then we go to Terrell Gorshey, who I think is the most comparable, but I don't think he's nearly as good as Tony. So I feel that maybe Tim Tszyu could give us something more than what we've seen. Maybe Tony comes forward and backs him up a little bit, and then we can see what Tim Tszyu could pull out his bag of tricks. Maybe he has something we haven't seen. Or maybe he's just flawed. Maybe he can't fight backwards, and maybe that's part of the reason why I think that Tony, at least early in the fight, he should be coming forward. But Tony needs to learn how to pace himself, to go to 12, to go to full 12 and go the distance. You know, he beat Jamel Charles, so we know that he's capable of doing it. But he's going to have to learn to pace himself each and every round. Take some rounds off in between. You know, guard up, move, you know, pot shot a little bit more. And, you know, just don't burn yourself out, you know, because Tim is going to be coming forward. But he's not going to be throwing a lot of punches on top of that. He's going to be coming forward, but he's not going to be throwing a lot of punches. So Tony is going to have to find a way to fight without fighting as hard each and every round. I think he can win this fight on points if it goes the distance. I think he definitely is a superior boxer between the two. But Tim Tszyu is very, very powerful. And once Tim Tszyu gets it going, it's really, really hard to stop him, because he is tough and he is very heavy-handed. And if you are on the ropes, which I've seen Tony be in the ropes, getting clipped with good shots, Tony, sometimes he steps in, throws combinations, and then he'll trade hooks with you. And if Tim lands first or harder, which is a huge possibility, that could be an opportunity where Tony gets hurt, and then I don't know where we're going to go from there, because I don't think Tony is the best at recovery when he's getting hurt, for the reasons that I stated earlier. You know what I'm saying? So, I think the two options that I'm thinking of how this fight will go is Tony Harrison the winner on points, or Tim Tszyu winning by KO. All right. I'm rooting for Tony. All right, I really hope Tony can win. That's my guy. Like, I want him to win. I'm rooting for him. I like Tony. You know, he's probably going to be a good trainer at some point. And, you know, I was talking to, I think on social media, on Twitter, what's his name? Ring Boxing IQ. He said that he's funny. He should start like a podcast or something. He's good. I love hearing him. His interviews has been amazing. This past week or so. But I think Tim Tszyu is the safer bet as far as winning by stoppage, because we know how powerful he is, and we know how Tony has lost in the past. Okay? I want Tony to win, but I think Tim Tszyu is the better pick. I think that's the prediction, to win by stoppage. If it goes the distance, I will be putting my money on Tony to win. I know the fight's out Australia, so I know people are going to bring up, oh, what if he gets robbed? But listen, fighters travel all the time. They travel all the time. You know, it's not an automatic like he loses on the cards if he goes out there. You know, it's not automatic. It could be, but I'm not thinking like that. I'm thinking about how I think I see the fight going, and I think that if it does go to the cards, I think Tony will win on points. All right, I think he will outbox Tim Tszyu, but if it doesn't go there, and I'm not expecting it I'm expecting Tim Tszyu to win. I don't know. I could be all wrong, and we might get shocked here. What if Tony is coming forward and Tim cannot really compete fighting on the back foot, and he gets totally exposed by Tony Harrison and get hurt again? This is Tim Tszyu's biggest test today. I honestly did not like the Jamel Charlo fight. Not that I didn't like it, but I wasn't excited for the fight like I am excited for this one, because I think there was a huge gap in opposition between Terrell Gausha and to straight to Jamel Charlo. And being that Tim Tszyu is not a good defensive fighter, I felt like Jamel Charlo has a power on a higher level. Like Tim Tszyu has proven to be a good puncher up to this point. But Jamel Charlo has been a good puncher against the best of the division. It's a difference. It's a level, a whole level above everybody that Tim Tszyu has faced. I think if he can win against Tony Harrison, then we'll really have a real understanding of what he's capable. But for now, I didn't really care for the fight like that. Wasn't really excited like that. I was excited to see Jamel fight again, but I wasn't really excited for the fight. But I'm excited for this one, because if he can beat Tony Harrison, especially if he could stop him and look impressive doing it, then I can say he can compete with Jamel. All right. So anyway, I'm gonna say Tim Tszyu stoppage. All right. I'll be rooting for Tony, but we got to keep it fair. I'll keep it boxing. I think Tim Tszyu is gonna win and stop Tony very late in the fight. I think he's gonna hurt him. Probably possibly pass the 9th or 10th round. All right, and he's gonna hurt Tony. Tony's gonna slow down, and he's gonna be more hittable at that point. And I think Tim Tszyu is probably gonna get the stoppage late. All right. So that is my breakdown of the fight. I don't know if I'm going to be available to do live yet, but I will let you guys know. But it should be a great fight. Definitely tune into this fight. Don't miss this fight. And that's it. So if you are new, please subscribe to the channel. And smash the like button, share the video, and all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.